What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today I got a highly requested video. I've been getting a lot of calls, a lot of emails asking questions, and the questions I keep getting are related to the SNS, DCR, or DPK. So my big question a lot of customers ask is, I have a 6.7. Everyone talks about the CP4, how bad it is, how prone to failure they are due to lack of lubricity in the fuel. And then they ask me, what is the difference between the disaster prevention kit, DPK, or the DCR conversion? There are videos out there. Unfortunately, I don't have a DCR kit. I just installed my last one that I had in stock last week, so I'll do my best to explain it without the actual DCR kit while I'm waiting for more. But I do have a DPK. This one is getting installed on one of my customers. This is a 2020 6.7 standard output, not a high output. It's got about 70,000 miles on it. I explained the differences and the pros and cons to each system to the customer. Big thing right off the bat, cost. DCR conversion is going to run you between $45,000 and $5,000 with parts and labor. In the DPK for this customer right now, I'm running this at about $1,500 parts and labor. So now the question that needs to be addressed is, what's the difference? Why is one more expensive, and which one's right for me? The easiest way I can put it, the DPK is exactly what it says it is. It's a disaster prevention kit, and that disaster we're talking about is potentially a $15,000 repair bill when your CP4 fails and shoves metal through the whole rest of the fuel system. It ruins your injectors, your pump, obviously, fuel rails, fuel lines. The tank needs to be dropped, needs to be cleaned out. All of these things, which add up to normally in the ballpark of $15,000 by the time the job's all said and done. So if you go with the DPK, what that does is the disaster prevention kit is a secondary, but actually a third mounted canister filter. So this is in addition to your primary and secondary that are already in the truck. This gets installed underneath the hood, and what it does is we take this CNC milled piece here, goes in top of your CP4 pump. And what it does is it reroutes the fuel. I'm going to put a picture up on the screen for you so you can see. But what it does is, in the stock configuration, the pump internally feeds the metering valve, which then goes out to the fuel rails, to your injectors, etc., etc. This CNC milled part, what it does is reroutes the fuel, so the internal fuel of the CP4 doesn't actually feed the metering valve or the injectors. The fuel actually comes from the crankcase of the CP4, goes out, goes through the added third return fuel filter, then goes all the way back through your normal fuel system, so the tank, the underneath frame mounted filter, to the supply pump, and then up to the secondary filter, which is the stock one at the engine. Then goes into this fitting and feeds the IMV, or the metering valve. So what that does is, if the CP4 goes bad and you have metal contamination in the crankcase side of the CP4, it takes that fuel, reroutes it through all the way back through the three systems. So it doesn't allow the contamination to make its way to the injectors, the lines. It doesn't allow it to contaminate the whole system. Like I said, this kit's $1,500. If your pump goes bad, this has been proven. SNS, who makes the best kit, there are a lot of Chinese knockoffs. They trying to copy this, but I will only myself install SNS disaster kits. If your pump goes bad, this will catch all the contamination. SNS actually did a video where they had a pump that went bad. They actually maybe purposely added water. I can't remember exactly what happened, but they ended up driving the truck with the DPK installed for quite a few miles, actually pulling a trailer as well, and the truck still ran because clean fuel was being supplied to the injection system after being filtered by this, along with your truck stock fuel system. So if the pump goes bad, you're still out parts and labor to change a pump, but you save yourself the extra $15,000 for injectors, rails, lines, the labor to clean the tank, all that. So it does exactly what the name says. It's a disaster prevention kit. It doesn't prevent the pump failing. We've heard of trucks that go 100,000 plus miles without CP4 failures. Fuel lubricity is a big issue nowadays. The fuel is so clean that there's no lubrication properties to the fuel. So the stock CP4 is 100% lubricated by the diesel. So if there's no lubricity, the pump doesn't get lubricated. We see the plungers inside, basically, that ride on the camshaft. They're supposed to stay one way. What happens is they end up turning, and then the pin bearing on the bottom of it rides on the camshaft and wears out. That's where your metal comes from. On the other side of things, there's the DCR conversion. It's about $2,000 for the parts, and then, like I said, anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 in labor. That kit is designed to completely replace as a retrofit for the CP4. I personally have installed tens of these. I'm probably over 50 at this point in my own truck. Personally, I had a DPK. I took that off, went to the DCR once it came out. The DCR's been out, I believe, over a year, or maybe pushing 2 years now. So there's a lot of testing that's been done and a lot of real world testing with the DCR. And to my knowledge, we haven't seen any failures of the DCR pump. I still do recommend that my customers run a fuel additive for lubricity in the DCR. The additive is also good for the injectors to keep them clean and lubricated. It's not only to prevent CP4 failure. So I personally still run fuel additive about every other tank in my truck, even with the DCR. So the reason I went with the DCR is because I make a lot of trips across the country pulling a trailer. And if you have the disaster prevention kit and you're on a long trip like this, if your pump goes bad, you still have downtime, whether that's 2 days or 6 days or 10 days to get in the shop and get the pump replaced. And then obviously you need to replace the filter within the DPK. However, if you can't afford this kind of downtime, if you're a hot shot or whatever, nobody can really afford or wants this downtime. So that's why I chose to go with the DCR. This is a once and for all, the holy grail, if you will, as PTT calls it. To get rid of the CP4. So once you get rid of the CP4, if you go with the DCR, you should never have to look back. When I do DCR replacements, I always replace the left-hand fuel rail, and the reason for that is there's an orifice actually in the left-hand fuel rail that can get contaminated. So I don't take any chances. I've had comebacks before after DCR conversions because of the rail. So now it's standard whenever I do DCR. I always replace the left-hand rail. If we do DPK, or if there's any evidence of contamination or fuel codes or anything like that, every repair gets a left-hand fuel rail if there's anything fuel-related going on. So I hope that clears up a lot of questions. Like I said, DPK prevents you from spending $15,000. It's about $1,500 installed. DCR will alleviate the issues with the CP4 and give you much better peace of mind, especially if you're taking long trips. It is a little more upfront. That one runs between $4,000 and $5,000 installed. So if you have any more questions, go ahead and send an email to the email. I'll put the email and phone number for the shop on the screen. Feel free to reach out. Let us know when we can get you in and get a DPK or a DCR installed. Thanks for stopping by, and check you in the next one.